the most super intelligent power, force, and source of love, creation, and authority is my shepherd. I shall not want. It maketh me to lie down in green pastures. It leadeth me beside the still waters. It restoreth my soul. It leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for its name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall continue to follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the resurrected, risen Lord Christ Jesus forever. What's happening? Benton here. If anybody caught yesterday's last stream of the day, it's now privated. Signal died out in the middle of nowhere because I've failed to switch over to Verizon from T-Mobile. Although T-Mobile held up fairly well overall on this long, somewhat tiring road trip from Los Angeles to now just about 3 hours south of Chicago. Not the city limits necessarily, but the Chicago area anyway. And this morning's drive, 2 hours and 22 minutes. I won't name the town, but we're taking the back roads, the royal we. And no live chat. I hope that's okay. I do want to thank everyone for listening and supporting. Much appreciated. We're in town here, so probably I could have driven this 125 miles yesterday, but got a little fatigued because of the accelerated healing that was unlocked and received yesterday. Great amounts, in fact, involving an enemy in a way, which is what? Anything associated or anything that identifies with this world of death and these games of lies. That's on some level the enemy, that which makes an enemy of what I am. Not Benton the performer or the personality or the performance. The core spiritual essence. These distinctions and contexts are quite important, necessarily. And it was interesting in visiting my grandmother, who's 91 years old, on Saturday. Was that Saturday? I believe so. Or was that yes, Saturday. Fuck, I don't know. Friday, maybe. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah, today's Monday. That would have had to have been Saturday. And then had a conversation with my mother. We don't speak that often. Somewhat regularly, but not too much. And then my father emailed me that evening, which was bizarre. I haven't heard from him in at least a couple of years. And in fact, his brother had just passed away. I guess that would have been November of 2023. And I tried to call my father, or maybe I emailed him, but I would have tried to call hey, I heard about your brother, sorry for your loss, all of this. Never heard anything back. Maybe took it a little personally, I'm not sure. I won't get too much into the history of my father, but I will say this: historically, especially as adults, at a certain point in my own growth, I recognized that he was quite adept at pushing my buttons, and that energetically he's one of these people that, with the psychic vampirism and the transference, and that he's really good at getting somebody to go off on him and really read him the riot act, and somehow it serves as like a form of emotional release for him. And I figured this out one day, one of the last times I fell victim to this, and especially in my more angry days. This would have been years ago. I was correct, but the emotional, getting that angry and yelling and going off on somebody was not appropriate, certainly. Deserve it or not, right? And I realized that afterwards I felt like shit, and he was literally whistling Dixie. Like he was just could not be in a better mood. And it just hit me. I said, wow, he's, this is something whether he knows it or not, he's intentionally eliciting this reaction. And then the transference, which is probably not strictly speaking what psychology means by transference, but it was him being able through those means to offload and dump, his own toxic bullshit from inside, and it ended up transferring into me, right? To sort of psychically suck off of, my own essence or creation, and then leave behind his own, death, really. That's what it is, those dead energy forms. Bear with me, we got a vehicle that doesn't understand that I'm a slow driver. I guess they want me to pass them, but it's like, no, I'm going way slower than y'all. Why would I pass you? That doesn't even make sense. They're probably drunk, though, this time of the morning. 3:30-ish Central, I believe. And so I noticed a pattern where much of the time that I interacted with him, I was doing a great deal of self-control and, breathing techniques and going through all of these things just to keep from, going off on him. And so yesterday, it was interesting to see that at no point did I get upset or angry or anything other than speaking and manifesting truth, consistent with what I am. Yeah, these people are definitely driving to avoid a DUI. It's like, can I just get through here? Pretty please with sugar on top. Can I get through this town? Why are we doing this to ourselves at 3:30 in the morning? I should be free to just cruise through here. What is this? Anyway. So that was a great spiritual attack, right? A very great spiritual attack. And I don't mean great in a desirous sense, although, some of this Eastern frou-frou, be grateful for the enemy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm not into that so much. But, alchemically and metaphysically, transmuting these things, and in fact, what I am, unable to be touched or harmed by these means, And hopefully we don't lose signal. We're rolling out of town now. So if we do drop off, what I'm going to have to do is manually go into airplane mode and out of airplane mode. And historically that fixes it. Why the phone doesn't know how to do that, I have no idea. But it doesn't. Now it's a slow driving contest leaving town. So bear with me. This is quite distracting with the hypervigilance. And we got railroads, and some of these railroad crossings destroy my tiny little car because some of them are quite rough. This one looks okay. And I'm telling all of this for a reason. It will hopefully become interesting, and it ties in with yesterday's last stream. And then every once in a while there goes somebody on the cross highway just driving like a normal person and went through the light at just a normal speed, 50 and a 45. I'm stuck with all the drunks who are avoiding DUIs, going slow as fuck on purpose. But they don't normally drive slow as fuck. I'm driving slow as fuck from Los Angeles to get good fuel economy. I don't need to be in a pack of drunks. Yet another spiritual attack. I don't believe we've reached the speed limit yet. And I mean the entire group of cars. And, you know, again, don't people understand that's suspicious to the law enforcement? Why is everybody going between 30 and 35 and a 45 at 3 a.m.? Are they drunk? Meanwhile, I would be going 45, but then they will try to all tuck in behind me. Oh, well, yeah, maybe we'll avoid the DUI because we'll be behind this guy and he'll get pulled over. Why would I get pulled over? I'm not doing anything. Anyway. So why did he contact me in the first place? Well, historically, you know, and I understand the well-worn cliches around narcissism and all of this, but and again, it's not an accusation. It's a personality thing, right? In conjunction with whatever was done to him as a child. And, you know, classical narcissism, NPD. Again, I'm not diagnosing him. I'm saying, well, you know, everything that clinically is considered that, he has it. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say. While much of the people that get accused of that merely have some of the traits. All right, we're finally out of the pack of drunks. We're back to normal driving. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Normality, right? And part of the tortures of this realm, this world of death and game of lies, is for the being to spend, you know, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years in a state that seems to be normality, society, because more or less that's how things have been. See? And then the system switches it up, right? So then the being falsely identifies with the normality of the past. Well, that's dead. That's gone. It's not accessible. But it enhances the torture of the now. Now is more torturous. And this is part of what I talked to with my dad. He brought up that he went to his brother's funeral. And this is probably what he actually wanted to talk about. Except, you know, he has his own issues around, is he going to, and this is not a feminine thing, this is a lack of masculinity in a way. You know, if he wants to broach a certain topic and discuss it, I'm more than willing, but like he's going to have to take ownership of it and guide and steer it. He wants to always give the topic to the other person and then have them caretake it, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, but I'm undiagnosed fake autistic and I need a framework. If you leave it on me, then, I don't understand what happened at the funeral. So I'm not necessarily going to stay on the topic. But if it's framed properly, then yeah, I'm interested, because I am interested in a boomer, a 70-year-old boomer, or 68, however old he was back then, going to this funeral and interfacing with multiple generations of his own family. And my father's a person who places a lot of onus on family in certain contexts. And in some ways was indoctrinated and continues to consider family, air quotes, as some version of sacrosanct, when it's never been that. And then, his famous father and this Benton name and all of this nonsense, those were, exacerbated the phenomenon. And, he had this, I won't even get into the whole thing. It's a whole thing. And meanwhile, him and I have the same propensity to rant and rave. And I've mostly, overcome mine and used it for arguably good, podcasting, these live streams, public preaching, public speaking. And he going into his older age he's a puss. My dad's a puss. It is what it is. And it's look, he whines and acts like a bitch, and I just spent a couple of hours with my 91-year-old grandma, and she's tougher than he is. And that's not hyperbole. I mean tougher mentally and spiritually, right? For real. My own mental strength and toughness does not come from my father's side of the family. It just doesn't. It comes from my mother's side. Call a spade a spade. And I was getting into the whole Frankenstein's. There's a Frankenstein's monster, Dr. Frankenstein. There's a lesson from Dr. Frankenstein in all of this as well that we may or may not get into as we peel back the proverbial layers of the onion. And the relevance of the accelerated healing. And old Benton's body is very sore today because of the accelerated healing. And, this is when I talk about people blocking their own healing. It's that the good pain is difficult to distinguish from the so-called bad pain, right? Lean into the good pain, facilitate the good pain. That is the healing. So right now, historically, after doing all of this cleansing, starting many years ago, herbal cleansing and all this stuff, that it cleared my sinuses up. My sinuses were congested for many years. I always had the stopped up nose. Now I almost always have clear nasal passageways. And, that's one of the greatest gifts anybody can give to themselves. And of course, this system of things, the food, just many, many mechanisms. I can't be the only one. The gaslighting of the realm is basically like, oh, well, everybody else is Zen Buddhists, and we have, we eat fast food and whatever we want to do, and our nasal passages are clear. It's like, okay, why are all these products marketed at nasal sprays and post-nasal drip and all of this stuff? Like, what's that about then? You can't have it both. I will not let the system and the people have it both ways. Which is it? Is everybody happy and toxically positive and contented? But then why are so many people on mood altering pharmaceuticals? Like, which is it? It can't be both. What are we doing? Society. What is society doing? So one moment we're leaving town. Hopefully we remain connected. I'm going to watch like a hawk to see if we start dropping. If we drop, I'm going to grab the phone. I'm going to, as fast as possible, go into airplane mode and come out of airplane mode. Probably that will fix it. So stick around if you would. Thanks for listening. If we go into repeated droppages, then that'll be a different thing. Although you never know. It might just, we might keep a signal. But historically, the towers, the handoff from tower to tower is not really what it could be, I would say. And then I had the surreal experience traveling from LA on I-40 out west, going west to east, and seeing the sign that said entering Navajo Nation, and immediately the cell signal dropped. Like, wow, these people really are treated in very specific ways by the government and the systems. You know, go ahead and lie to yourself and say that certain so-called indigenous cultures are not targeted to this very day. You go ahead and lie to yourself and say that's not the case. If anybody's never driven north out of Gallup, New Mexico, up into those towns on that highway, that's an interesting experience. That's a whole nother world. And if you happen to maybe stop at a store maybe and have a brief chat with one of the locals, that's just a whole nother animal. Anyway, back to whatever I was on about. The healing. So I think many people don't understand, and I wouldn't have understood this in the past, that I'm one of those pain don't hurt people. So the fact that I would say that my thoracic spine, actually now it's pretty much the entire right side of my chest cavity, I would say. Like my ribs, my scapular area, shoulder blade. So on my back, and then, almost the front of my rib cage, but kind of the side, like real near to where the bottom of my pec is on my right side, just lit the fuck up. Well, that is the healing. And that's where in my body, the stagnated trauma and whatever was done to me as a child. And I'm beginning to suspect that, maybe somebody snatched me up in anger when I was a young person. And, physically that would, because I don't know, I can't even explain it, but I'm suspecting I was maybe injured as a very young person, maybe a baby, whether intentionally or unintentionally. But so did that create something energetically where that ends up being where all of that trauma and repressed and stagnated negative energy, where it goes to and has become trapped? Because the left side of my body is more or less, as far as I can tell, doesn't have any of this. And so when I talk about the accelerated healing, it's the clearing and releasing of that. And the only way out is through those emotions that are associated with those states must be experienced. And then, emotion or memories or psychic states must be experienced. And a lot of that seems to happen in the dreams. Probably part of the reason many years ago I realized, okay, the actual content of these dreams is simply not important. These are not mysteries to be solved. These are processes that my body and my mind and my spirit, not the spirit, is what I am. See, that's, and a big key part of this is the spirit, what I am, can't be touched by any of this. And so the healing actually is, again, the continuous overflowing of the spirit, worshiper and worshipee contained within the same space. And on some level, the spiritual war is the interplay between this world of death attacking and undermining within the context of vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, delusion and illusion, creating the subversion of the creative force to create these conflicts inside where otherwise there can never be conflict, because what I am knows nothing of conflict. So when I speak with my Father, and when properly identified, there can't be a conflict, because he strategically will not create a conflict. He waits for the other person to fall within themselves potentially and to falsely identify in service of the demonic forces that infest him, and that brings them down to his level energetically, and then his reward is through the process of transference, he gets to offload some of whatever is he's filled to the brim with all of these negative states and an infantile emotionalism internally. See? And so that's relief to him when he's mistreated, especially if it probably seems like a spiritual attack from his perspective. And so this idea of vengeance or revenge or settling of scores, right? Well, it can't be done in anger. Meanwhile, this is someone who would have disciplined me in anger, who actually participated in filling me with anger, right? In some way. Again, after sacrificing me to Moloch, as was done to him, most likely. I don't have to say most assuredly. And then whatever's represented at a level of a bloodline, within my own, family and the Benton name, ha ha ha, as if that's something great or laudable. Who gives a fuck? I don't give a fuck. And now back to my nasal passages. Became emotional yesterday. Listened to, and this is also part of the healing. Listened to that Joe Jackson song that I referenced on one of the live streams. Stepping Out. And, had a cathartic moment of weeping, right? And I then became, again, John 14:26, the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, which I will send in my name, or the Father's name, or whatever it is. I need to go back and read the scripture, but will teach you all things and bring unto your remembrance. So I was being instructed and taught through the lyrics of the song, and then the healing of the catharsis and the tears, and then part of the healing is also what? The mucus. What does mucus do? That's lymphatic. It carries the germs, right, and the toxins out of the body. Well, in doing my journey, I didn't have any tissue to blow my nose, and I could have pulled over, but I failed to. And so I think what happened was the unclean mucus stayed in my nostrils too long, and now my left nostril is swollen, but I don't expect that to last very long. And how many people would rush off to products or the doctor? That's going to block the healing, folks. It's all contained within. And by the way, none of this is medical advice. I'm speaking from my own experience. YouTube, and I believe probably based on law, actual law, not man's law, on some level, YouTube probably has to permit me to speak on these things as long as I don't transmit them to others as far as saying, well, this will also, I have no idea of knowing what would or would not work for you. I ain't you. So let's be clear. I'm speaking only to my own experience while we negotiate the slow down to nothing for the potentially damaging railroad crossing. Just a moment. There we go. Oh, did I manage to grab my water bottle out of the back? No, I did not. Let's see. Hang on. We're reaching and grabbing. There it is. Let's get a little drink of water. Taking care of ourselves here in a bit. So the yin form of the yin and the yang, and let's not forget, this system of things and this world teaches that anything achievable is only ever achievable through assertion, aggression, dominance, yang, masculine means, energetically, when the reality is that what that will do is create blockages to the healing. The healing that's for free and the healing that operates as long as the proper conditions are present. The body heals. You know, all of these systems heal themselves. So what is the function of medicine and doctors? Well, that's medical coding and billing for profit, a business just like everything else, but it also serves to what? The treating of the symptoms further blocks the healing, because the symptom is a symptom of a healing process. It's not a symptom of an illness. The presence of healing is how the being knows that there's a healable condition, the restoration. So when Benton testifies and says delivered, healed, restored in the name of the Lord Christ Jesus, in the name and the power of the Lord Christ Jesus, the resurrection of the risen Christ within, that's a energetic, spiritual, ongoing process that the being, because of how this realm operates via the subversion of the creative force and the nature of the delusion and how strong the delusion is, and the never-ending series of offers to opt in the now it's here, now it's gone, now it's here, now it's gone, the present moment, to curse one's blessing by actively, through a yang or assertion, aggression, dominance, to always default to creating a blockage to healing. And here's the medical system to almost sacramentally, through these various rituals and salves and pills and potions, right? It creates a liturgy and almost a religion and a sacrament around these rites, R-I-T-E-S, to do what? To manifest and bring forth the fruit of this wicked system, which is what? What is the fruit of this wicked system? Death, death, death. This is the process of death and dying, to leave the mother's womb into what now many refer to as a matrix. Guess what? Another word for womb. To leave a womb and pass from true existence at the highest levels, one with the most super intelligent power, force, and source of love, creation, authority. All of this, which is a force that can never be divided energetically and spiritually. Therefore, when the being recognizes that they are seemingly existing as an individuated being, that proves the being is experiencing delusion, and it proves that the delusion is only existing because of the subversion of the creative force itself, or the thing that the being is never not one with. And that is the most accurate description culturally, anthropologically, sociologically, and in the present, using the English language, that you will ever find. And they want me to write a book. Why? Write it down in a book so that it can age year after year after year within delusion. And every new moment, it loses a little more of its meaning because it's dead words on a dead page. How can Benton be interested in dead words on a dead page? Well, yeah, I know that sounds counterintuitive. What I mean is, having unlocked the achievement within the game of the world of death and the game of lies, of true knowledge of self / self-realization, there's no future in putting those down on a page. That's called business. That's called transacting. That's called, well, the being is still going to choose to preferentially make money, at least in the short term, Now, maybe it's on the way to living as much as possible transcendent of money, transcendent of business and all of this, but we ain't there yet, the royal we. So I will not, Benton has no interest in turning his personality, his circumstances, all of these attainments to codify and become a death coach. Do you know how many millions could conceivably be made by hiring consultants and undergoing media training, vocal training, right? And all of this to become the world's first death coach, or at least in the context of this system of things and social media and internet. When you've got 1,000,001 life coaches, when all sorts of people are LARPing as life coaches, when we have at least one in the so-called truth community, if anybody knows what that purports to be, well, then obviously the way to make a whole shitload of money is to go the other way, death coach, and call it, what do you mean life? This is death. My own father called it a hell realm, for fuck's sakes. Truther 101 normie life is now, this is a fucking hell realm. Right? And my own father came into the room several years ago at his apartment and declared himself to be an empath and a fucking Sigma male, for fuck's sake. I mean, this could not be any more normalized. My now 70-year-old boomer father, actually 71, I guess, however old the man is. Maybe it was just his birthday. Maybe that's why he contacted me. Figured, what's up with this? Maybe I'll get a belated birthday. Well, I know you're a Libra, sir, but beyond that, so late September, I guess. Yeah, it was just his birthday. I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with it. Who knows? Don't know, don't care. Can't be bothered. So back to get off the healing for a moment, we'll go back to it. So back to why is my father contacting me? Because the demonic entities that he was blessed / cursed into, because let's not forget, my father was some version of a Nepo baby. As long as he hit whatever metrics he needed to hit, his father, who was set up in business through a bloodline, right? And in fact, my grandfather, my famous grandfather, his lineage runs through people who were apparently prominent in the county, I believe Dallas County, Arkansas, various high positions, but, still in poverty in Arkansas, right? And I have an uncle who's a judge to this day, who's older than my father. And, we have a few failures to launch in my father's generation, varying degrees of success. And then seemingly what the bloodline is in service to the evil, wicked system of things is athletes. Because if we look at what the NFL is, well, it needs people to use. And I won't go into all the stuff with my grandfather, but there's a whole lot there. And, why was Benton as a young person, one of the greatest, 5'8", 130-pound basketball players of all time? This has to come from somewhere. And yeah, I understand that's not, one of, there's been people, it doesn't even matter. It's just, it's a tiny little person, by basketball standards. It's like a short skeleton running around out there, fucking making layups in the face of 6'4" black dudes. I mean, come on, what are we talking about? Some version of Little Mac from Mike Tyson's Punch Out. running around knocking people the fuck out, metaphorically. I don't want to get into it, but that's a thing. That's something, right? That's a thing that the system would want to use. But then, what the system does is what it needs to use at a given time is going to be based on what does it find expediently useful and what does it need. And my grandfather was expediently useful and was rewarded by being able to go into a lucrative business in a poor part of the country. That he didn't bootstrap, he did not compete. There will be blood style and become a motherfucking oil baron, right? He did not hard work himself into wealth, and he didn't have wealth, he had relative affluence. It's not like he created wealth, some of which was passed on to my father, some of which would presumably be passed on to me. That's not a thing. See, it's trickle-down economics. Well, the trickle-down economics is, by the time it makes it to me, there's nothing left. There's your trickle-down economics, and that's fine. It's better that I didn't, because if I had been set up in business, this would be a very different bit. And so my father was set up with a very lucrative convenience store when convenience stores were just becoming a thing. See, a big growth industry. And my father did a version of a Nepo baby trust fund baby where, and I understand this about business, you're either growing or you're dying in business. The expansion is required. And why is expansion in business required? Because it's an inversion of the authority and the value represented by what I am symbolically. So if the real thing or thesis is love, expansion, growth, life, then this realm's inverted version of that and seeking to usurp and supersede and replace and disprove the authority of through what seems to be a sijud, which is actually degeneration, but that's another matter. Well, you see what's going to happen. So the key to affluence through business and maintaining that, because let's not forget, my father's living in poverty now, because even though he went to college and they taught him business, he failed to understand that constant expansion is required. And the actual wealthy people, they insist on constant expansion. And so when Benton says the function of the economy is to make rich people richer every new moment into perpetuity, and it never stays. And unfortunately, we seem to have. But one moment, since we're connected to airplane mode, be right back. Are we here? Are we there yet? All right, I think I'm here, but I don't know. Let me double check on my other phones here. So I don't even know if I'm live. I figure we would have lost viewers. It says 10 in the house. So hopefully, oh shit, a stop sign. Better pay a little more attention. I got lulled. Oh, that's the side road, or is it? No, that's a stop sign. Oh, we got a turn here. Fantastic. Did I miss a turn? Now is the question. Did we miss a turn? I don't think so. Let me look at the map. Oh, now we're up to 11, so yeah, I guess we're still good. No, we're good. All right, all is well. And hopefully y'all didn't miss too much of that, because I really hit on some truth, and then surprise, surprise, I look up, it says, you're live, and it completely derailed the discourse. Because there was more to that, whatever I was on about. And that's okay. And you see that within delusion and illusion and time, space, location, place, the unfolding of all of this it's sort of on its own timetable in a way, right? In a way. Hopefully we're here. Let me double check on my one of my 2 backup phones. Double check. See if we're here. I'm going to mute real quick, but I'm still here. All right, just a moment. The hotspot was not on. Going into airplane mode, I forgot to turn the hotspot off. All right, hang on. I'll be right back. All right, all systems go as far as I can tell. Good deal. Good deal. Okay. All right, we're good. We lost a few, but that's okay. Not everybody has the attention span. I get it. I get it. And it will take me a minute to get back on track. So probably if there's other things to check out, you know. Sorry for my apologies for the sniffling. It is what it is at this point. Part of the process, part of the healing. One moment. Let's get a drink of water. And with the now aborted spiritual discourse, due to the, shall we say, constraints of the technology, we can go into some of the biography. And let's face the reality that some of the folks who are here regularly, and in fact, and I'm not calling anybody out. I hope people understand that, you know, the people that I do interact with, especially maybe through email or on the back channels, you know, the ways I'm communicated with has a meaning to me that can be quite separate from the meaning that the person believes themselves to be communicating. Because, you know, now we're back to the philosophy of solipsism. So when somebody leaves me a comment on the channel who is also a donator, right? The reality is that person is relating to themselves in a philosophy of solipsism way, which is not bad. You know, the system tries to act like it's bad, but it's not. That's gaslighting. And they're actually, you know, it probably is holistically healing on some level for them, right? But then Benton, for his own purposes, needs to, you know, in order not to become confused, I have to keep all of that straight in my mind. So there was a comment having to do with how somebody receives these live streams, and I appreciate it. And that's Kalian, if I'm saying that right, also known as Carrie. And she's been around the channel for quite some time, and definitely appreciate her, even if she didn't give money. And in fact, there was a long time where she wanted to and wasn't able to, and still was well received. I believe a moderator at a certain point. We have no moderators now on the channel. And she, you know, and probably, you know, in some way tongue-in-cheek joking, said something about cult leader, but she said it in a particular context. And so I'm more willing to entertain the cult leader thing because she's framing it in a way, and then I can see that it's probably based on, and again, if I'm not talking to her, I'm not talking to her. It's up to her to discern, does this pertain to her? If it doesn't, throw it out. You know, a lot of my own, you know, early stages of my spiritual growth was taking in a bunch of information, and in doing so, discarding the parts that simply did not pertain to me, or were not pertaining at a particular time, but then maybe later they were. And so certainly, I don't think it's arguable that Benton certainly has certain aspects of personality that would be on the side of possibly functioning as a cult leader in a way, right? Or a cult of personality, and in fact probably have to some extent, more so in the cult of personality side of things, but more in a comic sort of Mr. Bean, you know, Mr. Magoo, like some kind of combination of Mr. Magoo and Mr. Bean, like comically, just that a very specific thing, as we managed to somehow dodge a couple of deer that I didn't even see until they were off the road. I guess they just ran right in front of me. I was so focused on other things. Funny how that works. Struck one deer. No, that's true. One was in a big rig. One was in the old Kia Sorrento. KIA. Yes. They got a stop sign. Good. And they're turning right, of course. Well, we're going slow, so we're going to pull into the Hucks, which looks closed, but the sign seems to say they're open. Now, most likely they're going to pull in here. No, they're going to keep going. So I'm going to get in behind them because otherwise they might not want to pass me. I almost guarantee they're going now. See, now they're suspicious, so they got to go slow, because when things might be dangerous, slow makes you safe. Well, not necessarily. Sometimes when things are dangerous, the best thing to do is get the fuck out of Dodge. But now they're going to go slow. I'll go slower, 25 and a 40, no problem. Whatever we got to do. Oh, and here's the interstate. They're probably getting on the interstate. But you never know. They might be staying on the highway here, the small 2-lane highway. And then people, how much of people's behavior is based on guilt, right? As if the default is, well, they must have done something. So, you know, now when something out of the ordinary happens, oh my goodness, you know, am I guilty of something? Well, see, I am guilty. That's a violation. What I am can never inhabit a state of guilt. It's not possible. See? So how much of the language is structured to facilitate treating one's blessing as if it were a curse? Anyway. Where was I? Oh, yes. My father is Nepo baby, not understanding that in business, he needed to have a chain of convenience stores, not just the one that he eventually burned out on and eventually sold, and now some Indians run it. Which is fine, who cares? And the idea that, there was no meritocracy there. It was, his father somehow got blessed into this Benton oil company, bulk plant, they call it. And my father, was able to work at the bulk plant and a truck stop that the family owned. My grandfather owned at the time in my hometown. And then my father, being the baby, the youngest, my grandfather sent him off to college. And then as long as my dad did what was expected of him, well, okay, here's your business, right? Except my grandfather retained the land and the building. My father owned the actual business, if that makes sense. However that worked. And then, of course, the system that enabled my father to identify himself in relation to this vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions within the context of a bloodline that has served this evil, wicked system of things. And so back to the spiritual attack, it's my father in some way, making good on what he was not what he earned through bootstrapping and hard work and outperforming his enemies and competitors in business. No. It was earned through the family service to wickedness, evil, antithesis, the chief commander of this realm. So that if you scroll back through my post tab, there's a colorized version of what I would assume was a black and white picture, although maybe, since that was, I believe, the Los Angeles Rams, the first season they played in LA, moving from Cleveland, maybe it was, from the program, maybe it was originally in color. I don't know. But you see that my grandfather is shown kind of sticking his ass out and has a football in his gigantic hands, and looking kind of like me from a profile. Actually, I'm looking kind of like him from the profile, and supposedly everybody says I look the most like our famous grandfather amongst all the grandkids, whatever that means. And who cares? But I'm not into all that personally. Not anymore. Maybe at one time. But all that hero worship bullshit and a bunch of nonsense. And there's a fella behind him who's playing for the college all-stars, because back then so that would have been 46, because the defending NFL champions played the college all-stars in an exhibition game to start before the NFL season. That was a tradition back then. And Cleveland had won the NFL championship in 1945, then moved to Los Angeles. In fact, the first team to move to the West Coast, first major sports team on the West Coast, I believe. Pretty sure that's the case. Anyway, and just surprise, surprise, my grandfather was all pro for them that season. And again, that's not even a point of pride at this point. More attesting to the bloodline aspect. Which does what? That's going to unlock and enable even stronger spiritual attack, perhaps. Right? Because meanwhile, what did I ever receive? What did Benton receive through the bloodline? Well, for some reason, my father chose to raise me as a Jehovah's motherfucking Witness, which is also the bloodline serving. Because that's one of the most demonic religions there is. The Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania, which in fact, many people are not aware of this, the most widely distributed periodicals in the world is the Watchtower and Awake magazines. No, not in America, in the world. I mean, what even is this? Now, that's not even really a thing anymore with the internet, but that's a big fucking deal for most of my life. Big fucking deal. You know, I've toured the headquarters and all of that. And in fact, if I had actually internalized all of this, right? And what if my father was a little more successful in business? He could have tied, you know, my own willingness to join the Jehovah's Witnesses and get cursed into that. He could have tied that into, well, if you want to inherit this chain of convenience stores, you know, buddy, you better do what's expected of you, right? Nepo baby Benton. And, in Jehovah's Witness religion, there's people who go off to Bethel, and it's considered like this great honor to go. It's like working at the Walmart headquarters or whatever, in a way. You know, you go serve at the headquarters. Meanwhile, there was I don't even want to get into it, actually. But it's a sick, depraved environment. Surprise, surprise. Inarguably. It's a mind control cult. So, you know, shocking nobody, Benton has aspects of cult of personality and cult leader. So back to the commenter, Kalian, you know, she had her own framing of, you know, what she takes away from these discourses, and then creating a structure in her own mind of Benton as a functioning perhaps as a cult leader. So here's how cults operate. Each individual cult member constructs within their own mind based on the subversion of the creative. They create their own version of the cult leader. Again, it's a worshiper and worshipee contained within the same space, but it's a bastardized, dead form of what I talk about, and the Bible talks about the continuous renewing of the Spirit. See? But walking the uncovered, perfected path within. See? So we see alchemically, metaphysically, transcendentally, your broadcaster has used all of this evil that he was delivered into or fitted into from day one, and in the name and power of the Lord Christ Jesus has been delivered out of the hands of the enemy. Delivered into what? The spirit and direct experience of what I am in context of delusion. My birthright but it's all in the context of delusion, because outside of the context of delusion, there is no birth. There is no beginning. There is no end. See? It's only within delusion that this all holds true. And not even true, because Kybalion says all truths are merely half-truths. And intuitively, Benton understands, yes, that is correct contextually. And the so-called truth community seems adept and expert at removing context and or selectively applying or omitting context to serve their own evil purposes. Right? As we see, the royal we. And the reality is there's simply no place for these sermons and broadcasts and dispatches, because this cannot be turned into a business, because to turn this into a business would preclude the proper expression of proper preaching, powerful preaching, manifesting truth, bringing forth actual life through and into delusory, decadent death, which is what this place is. Delusory, decadent death. And so they say, well, 444 represents archangels who are here to help you. Oh, well, or is that DDD 444 fallen angels here to provide the means to get tapped into the economy to at least serve evil enough to be able to access what? The death of this world. Render unto Caesar, let the dead bury the dead. And my own father, who had me go into the Kingdom Hall and who went to the Kingdom Hall, I brought up this render unto Caesar, and here's how I did it. Because the first time churches were mentioned, and I believe he brought them up, although I might have brought them up, I said and commented, well, and we know what the churches are about because the church doesn't pay taxes. But the quiz was, but what does the church teach? And I paused. He said, pay your taxes. I said, exactly. So now we know everything we need to know about the churches. How can it be appropriate to pay my taxes and the church doesn't pay any tax? That can't ever be appropriate. It's got to be the same. What's good for the goose must be good for the gander. It has to be. What are we talking about? Or are they taking liberties? See? Or are they vampirically, predatorily sucking off of and feeding off of the members? Now it's Neo from the Matrix in a tank somewhere being sucked off of. See? So then I said, and then I think he said the render unto Caesar, that's one of the big lies of the Bible, and it eventually gets tied in with what the Apostle Paul, Saul of Tarsus, wrote in Romans, which I'm no expert on. And so, but we've removed the context. So I said, that's right. So he wants to go off about what Jesus said, because remember, this is also what the Jehovah's Witnesses teach. And I said, aha, but why? What was the context in which Jesus said these things? And my father was dumbfounded. And then I think he figured out, oh, they were trying to trick him. Exactly. The Pharisees were building a court case so that eventually he could be executed for sedition. The Lord Christ Jesus. Jesus Christ is Lord. Of what? Of what? If the person can't say of what accurately, they don't know what they're talking about. But I'll answer that in a moment, perhaps. Let's not do too much preaching. Let's stick to the story. I said the Pharisees or the Sadducees or whoever approached Christ publicly with a crowd gathered, and Christ would have had to adhere to the law, which the law was you must pay your tax. Death penalty for not paying taxes, in fact. Now, did the rich people and the powers that be pay their taxes? Would they have been put to death? Well, no, this is for the poor people. Two economies. We, the poor folks, expected to pay their tax, right? Or, provide whatever services they were able to provide, right? Maybe we get into sex work and, prostitution, perhaps. I don't know. But remember, and I also reminded my father, after baptism, Jesus did not work a job, did not accrue tax liability, and did not handle money. And my father seemed to remember the part where Jesus produced a coin. No, Jesus asked for a coin because Jesus didn't carry money. And these distinctions are important. And I wouldn't expect my father to remember this. And I said, so Christ probably did not have the option of remaining silent. He had to answer in a way to thwart the trap because his mission wasn't yet completed. Meanwhile, yeah, he was eventually executed for sedition. You know, give us Barabbas style. Apologies for the pauses, but we're going to get there. I think something's happening down in the bowels. We need some water. Anyway. And so he asked somebody to give him a coin, and he asked, or to produce a coin, and he asked, okay, whose picture is that on the coin? Caesar. Okay, well, render unto Caesar. Render. What does the word render mean? Fat is rendered, right? Well, if Caesar is claiming ownership of the fat of the land, meaning business, production, the means of production, right? What is being rendered at the level of industry, let him have it. Or, more correctly, let the dead bury the dead. It's all dead anyway. If Caesar and this system of things represents death, give them death. It's what they're asking for. And it has no value because it's dead. Same with the money that I've been asking you folks for. Same for the money I've been borrowing. Same for the money that's in my fanny pack paying to drive across the country. It's dead. This car's dead. So if the next appropriate move, and I won't know till I get there, is to meet with this fellow that's going to give me a job, not give me a job, that I'm going to allow to employ me. Let's be clear. These distinctions matter. Because I'm going to be doing him a favor, not the other way around, but he is doing me a favor in a way. So it's actually, it is symbiotic by people who've suggested some symbiosis. You know who you are if you're listening, sir. The farmer. Who shot JR? I don't know. Was there a farmer in Dallas? Probably the farmer. Because if they tolerated old JR that long, whoever was willing to shoot JR but had the most patience and tolerance to put up with those shenanigans, probably the farmer shot him. But that's a whole other story. But I don't remember the players in the TV series Dallas. So I might be way off the mark there. Probably not. Sniffling still. So what it represents with the church is they don't pay taxes because they symbolically are so aligned with the system of death. They are earning their keep, right? It's the symbols. Symbolically, the people who go to church need to affirm their allegiance to death by paying taxes, by rendering unto Caesar. See, that's your tithing. See, that's your portion given over to the church, metaphorically, literally, and symbolically, right? And that's how the church functions and operates. why would this church that's fully a part of this dead system of things, why would it render unto Caesar? It is Caesar. Render unto Caesar. The church is Caesar. So this is also spiritually and symbolically a representation. It's the individual who's always presented with the option in the now it's here, now it's gone. Would you like to treat your blessing as if it were a curse? And the reality is, on some level, simply by accessing employment, you know, it's arguable that Benton is perhaps doing that, although here's the rub. If Benton is able to plausibly pull off a return to truck driving, which has not happened yet, while remaining properly identified, I won't know until it's time to start hauling freight. You know, I might get all the way there and it might turn out, well, actually, I'm not able to drive a truck, sir. And it turns out, well, yeah, I haven't, you know, as of yet, I haven't gotten my DOT physical. Because who knows? I might be turning in, I might be saying, well, okay, no more CDL. Who knows? I don't know. I can't call it. I won't know till the moment's there. Because how could I? Yeah, let's demand our pound of flesh and make sure everybody comes to a complete stop at the four-way stop. Have the hockey face off. Even though I intentionally slowed way the fuck down, so there's no reason for him to stop and wait on me. But, you know, patterns and such. Silly humans. There's no requirement to have the hockey face off. But some people, many people insist on the proper hockey face off at the four-way stop. It's like, really? You really think I'm slowing down to 3 miles an hour because I'm a lunatic who's going to floor it and smash into the side of your pickup with my fucking Mickey Mouse car? Does this make sense to anybody? In what world is this ever going to happen? Really? I'm that tricky? I'm that fucking tricky? And I never fully told the story about that picture on my post tab. So my apologies for that. I got distracted, went off to other things. But so the college player behind my grandfather has a look on his face like he's looking at my grandfather's backside, and he finds it delicious. Just go look at it. It's fucking right there in your face. It's like, what is this? And many people will say, oh, you're crazy. What do you mean? It's like, yeah, because I am tapped into the subconscious, which perfectly decodes all symbols. This is plain to see. If other people can't see it, that's not my problem. It's right there. It's right fucking there on Front Street. It's like, anyway, I don't even want to get into the graphic nature of what that would be potentially. Let's not do that. Oh, look, here's a couple of big rigs already waiting to get unloaded. Actually, it's a bunch of them. At least 2 of them waiting to get unloaded. Or start their days early in the morning. There's one at the dock already probably getting loaded or unloaded. This is part of the life of a truck driver. Just to perhaps get there the day before on a Sunday and be ready to get unloaded first thing Monday morning, if that's in the cards for them. May or may not be, of course. So yeah, I won't know until I'm there in the moment. Because that's to walk the perfected path that lies within. It's not based on the so-called wisdom of this world of death. The dead wisdom of a dead world is based on consulting and being tapped into the perfected righteousness within. Oh yeah, I said it. Righteous expression beyond the possibility of sin. And there is no place for this level of preaching in this realm. Do people support it? Yeah, but the moment I preach this and simultaneously ask for donations, especially in the public, that's the moment the hearer says, oh, okay, I knew it was a scam. Yeah, because this is scam nation. So how could Christ have a job, pay taxes, and handle money, and simultaneously heal, restore, deliver, teach and preach. It's one or the other on some level. Now, it's not for Benton to then say, okay, I just YOLO, man, I'm going to wander the earth like Canaan kung fu. That's a fantasy, because maybe this is achievable while driving a truck, but maybe the preaching is over the internet and there's no donations expected or accepted, although they're always accepted. I'll find something to do with them, right? Maybe just pass them on to people who are in need, right? Either way. And this is part of what I was telling my father, is when he's having this fantasy of separating himself from the system, which is what? To recognize on some level, he has to know he was cursed into some kind of bloodline, treating blessing as if it were a curse from day one. And now it's like, he probably has a desire to get away from the evil. It's the same mechanism where if he can get me to go off on him, then he leaves behind some of that evil, gross, repugnant energy that don't feel good inside, right? Jack Talcott, if anybody knows who that is, also filled to the brim with this sort of energy, clearly, right? Clearly. So this fantasy of getting away from the evil, right? Well, that's not going to happen, buddy. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, the only way out is through. This is more. So how can he simultaneously try to tell me it's a fucking hell realm, but then thinks he can separate himself from the hell realm? Yeah, by going within, sir, and uncovering the perfected path that lies within. But to step into blessing and to reverse curse, because the curse has been applied. The curse must be rescinded. And if there's an intergenerational curse, perhaps, in the bloodline, well, old Benton seems to certainly be reversing and moving beyond that. How else would there be deliverance, healing, and restoration? See, that's the proof. That's the proof. That's the resurrection of the risen Christ Jesus within me. That is that thing. But not to then turn into a business and an identity, and to then, now it's Benton's job to go give it to the people. What did Christ do? He showed the way. And have some followed it over time outside of dogma and doctrine? Yeah, I would assume so. Benton is seemingly doing that in real time. Seemingly. Seems to be the case. Meanwhile, this world that makes an enemy of what I am will only ever spiritually attack. And those spiritual attacks will only ever grow in strength. That's part of the Christ story. What Christ experienced just before crucifixion was the strongest possible spiritual attack that this realm could possibly attack him with. I would have almost assuredly gone off on him, and it would have seemed appropriate, and it would have seemed righteous, but it wasn't. And in fact, it would have dragged me down energetically within myself. It would have dragged me down. Let's see. And his master would have been well pleased. So I suspect my father had no desire to contact me, because I've realized not only did my father not love me, and in fact, culturally, there is a thing in the Deep South where the father knows not to treat his son lovingly with tenderness and compassion because the fear that it will make him gay, right? Like for real. It's not spoken about necessarily, but it's a real thing. I'm not giving my father a pass. I'm saying he was probably also treated that way. But I've realized my father doesn't even like me. It never has, because probably on many levels I represent what he doesn't like about himself, because, and I'm just guessing. Now, Mr. Miyagi, if you're listening, no, I can't possibly know this part. I'm guessing about this part, sir. Guessing. It could be true. It might not be true. This is a guess. And I'm saying it's a guess because if I had to estimate it, I'd say 60-40. that I'm correct here. And now do I even remember the thing? Did I lose it? Hang on. Wait a minute. I think I still have it. I'm just trying to remember how I was going to say it. Oh, because in my father's world, my father was young. My father created a reality for himself where no matter what, he could never outdo it. Other than actual cult members can tolerate vertical streaming. So when I try to go to my menu, my drop-down menu to go airplane mode and hotspot, I'm used to it being vertical, but because I myself included in most of the so-called truth community can't deal with vertical live streaming. I'm stuck in horizontal mode. Grab a water jug if I can. Quite thirsty morning. I know what that's all about. Thomas Loman. Oh, it's a semi too. Good. Might be hard. And so that he's attempted to carry that on into his relationship with me. He's always above me in that way. Are we disconnecting again? This sucks. We're not that far from civilization. Anyway, it is what it is at this point. We're just going to have to deal with it. There's really no point in going into airplane mode every 120 seconds. So, I don't know. We got through the meat of the spiritual presentment. Whatever. I don't think it would be this on Verizon. I think if I ever get around to switching to Verizon, this won't happen near as much. And realistically, what probably needs to happen, and I won't know till I get there. And I haven't promised anybody truck driving, right? I'll send this fella his $100 back, right? And he's already said that he doesn't want the $50 fee, but if I get a paycheck, I'm sending him the $50, and if he sends it back, I'll just keep it, because at that point I'll just consider it a donation. And I'm not doing this thing where we fight over the check, metaphorically fight over the check at the restaurant. I refuse. If anytime I go out for dinner and I'm like, hey, I got this, and the other person's like, no, I got it, and then I'm like, no, man, I insist, and he comes back, okay, you got it, buddy. I'm not going to make everybody sit here while we fight over the check for 30 minutes. Nope. All right, buddy. Nope. We're not doing round 3. That was round 2 solves it. I'm paying. Oh no, I got it. Well, but wait a minute. I beat you to it, sir. I'm in the process of paying. Oh no, I got it. But then I'm like, I insist. No, really. Okay. Have at it, sir. Because as a waiter, I've watched people fight over the check for 30 minutes. Then finally somebody produced a $100 bill. And as soon as I saw that $100 bill, that's who pays. Assuming I'm reasonably certain that whatever's left over is my tip. If it represents a decent tip. And then the other person's like mad at me. I'm like, hey man, I don't know what to tell you. It's a $100 bill. You trying to get me to go run your credit card. Sorry. Cash is king, partner. Sorry about your luck. You lost. Take your L, sir. Now, I wouldn't say that, but there's ways of saying that without saying it. Take your L like a man. And that was one of the greatest things I learned from sports is, to compete. And if they beat me and I gave my best effort, well, they've accomplished something. Why wouldn't I be happy for the person that bested me in a competition? That's crazy, right? Now, of course I wanted to win, and of course I'm going to learn everything I can learn to do better next time. But, to the victor go the spoils. And yet some people are just trying to be seen as wanting to pay the check and actually don't want to pay the check. That's a whole other thing also. But then eventually I learned to sneak away. I got this. Could you go ahead and tab me out? So by the time the other person thinks we're going to fight over the check, I'm like, no, man, I already paid. Them paying all the time, and eventually they came to other. And I realize now if I wanted to, because I need some vitamin D, I could have ordered it, and it just now strikes me that I'm about to cruise right past an Amazon locker that I've used many times, and I could have ordered this like 2 or 3 days ago, and it would be there right now, most likely. But that's okay. I've had other things on my mind. Hypothetically, I could have gotten all the way up here and just hung out for like a week. But then now we're depleting resources that would have... And I haven't said this yet, but if I do end up back in the truck this week, which is looking like that's the way it's going to go, but no guarantee yet, it looks like I'm going to have the resources to make it through to the first check. Because remember, this company holds back the whole first week. And I should be able to take a draw, but that's actually apparently becoming less common in the industry. It used to be industry standard, more or less, as soon as you're under the fucking first load, you can pretty much get a draw. That railroad crossing was a little rougher on the car than I anticipated. That's okay. Yeah, we might be abandoning the car. Don't know yet. It's possible. I'm hoping this guy is like, yeah, man, I got a place I can store it. You're just not going to be able to, it's going to be a while before you can access it again. I'm like, hey, man, I'm just trying to not have to sell the thing for $250 to the, we buy junk car people who will show up here. Somebody will show up here in the next hour and load it onto a fucking flatbed and drive away with it. And I'll be trying to cash a motherfucking check. In a goddamn bank. And again, back to the healing of the large intestine, in order to properly evacuate my bowels, and I understand the TMI there, but in order to defecate, I must accept that this is simply how my father is, and that what he did was, as soon as, whatever he was trying to get out of the conversation, whether it already happened or it wasn't going to happen, because, my performance cognitively and with understanding of various, because everything I was saying spiritually and about this place and about economics, he immediately tried to say that he was acting as if he knew it. And I do this as well to some extent, I know. But he wasn't doing it to facilitate the conversation necessarily, although he was in part, right? But eventually he could tell that I was just going to take over every topic if he stuck to, Trump, America, geopolitics, the economy, that I was gonna, I was gonna be I was gonna be giving a better performance of discussion. But meanwhile, in his world, I can't outdo him. See, because that's not possible, because he created that for himself in his own mind. And that must be true across the board. It can't just be true for him, because then he would be lacking something, see. And a narcissist, an actual classical narcissist, this would trigger an existential crisis, literally. And and again, what's the reason for him contacting me? Well, it could be to spiritually attack me, but then maybe he just said, well, maybe my son will be a source of narcissistic supply, because I have been at times in the past. So these narcissists, as many of you know, they do these narcissist takeaways where they aren't getting their supply, and so they just disappear, but then invariably they pop back up to probe and see, well, can I suck this person back into serving as a source of supply? Well, once I realized his patterns and understood that I had been giving him supply, well, Benton, being very strategic and disciplined, he was like, okay, just never give him supply again. And then the hurt of realizing, oh, my father, who supposedly loves me, just immediately vanishes. The moment he recognizes that I'm not going to give him what he desires, he's gone for years. And this has been at least the second or third, probably the third time that he's gone from my life for years. The moment he recognized, oh, wow, this actually isn't a source of supply. So I'm pretty sure that the demonic entities that inhabit him, and the ones that the chief commander, right, evil personified into a being, if that's a thing, said, well, we're going to need you're going to have old Larry Benton contact this guy, because Benton's getting a little too big for his britches over there. That's how my people would say that. A little too big for his britches, He's got to be dealt with. So we know historically he's been prone to this particular attack where he ends up, his father pushes his buttons and he goes off on his father. And then what? That's wrath. That's wrath. See? But then the same level of energetic force can express righteously. See, that's the difference. And so that's where we got the healing that was unlocked near when the signal dropped on yesterday's stream. And that's why it's private, because it got very, very real at the end. And I began speaking to where it seemed like because I was using reverted to the you form, but I really wasn't addressing the audience. That's why it's private. And in fact, I was in the process of correcting my own form of speech when the signal dropped and did not return. Let's see. That happened. But again, the only way out is through. So whatever energetically has the damage that's been wrought inside of me, it was healed by bringing forth alchemically and what's the word for this? To turn lead into gold. Forget the process. Either way, in transmutation, to actually, instead of bringing forth death and destruction through wrath, to facilitate what? The spirit of what I am. Tolerance, love, acceptance, healing, and all of this, right? Appropriately. And that then unlocked and released a great deal of healing, and it was done through powerful coughing, right? A powerful coughing. Yeah, people pull out. It's like they were going to wait for me to go 30 miles an hour for the length of a football field and then pull out behind me. Like, why would you do that? That's crazy. 130. It's the speed limit. Oh, they're making a left turn. Well, it makes a little more sense now. But either way. What even is this? And I just saw on the, I saw a joke that had to have been written by AI on one of those old school signs that, you put the letters on one by one outside of, I guess, one of these country fitness centers that doesn't look like a fitness center. It just looks like a regular old building. But it said, "I will never break up with Jim," spelled Gym. "We just seem to work out." And that has to be AI's idea of comedy, because that shit ain't funny. It's not amusing. It's a wah, 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 boom, right? It's so bad that you're just like, wah, wah, wah. It's so hack. It transcends itself in a way. AI wrote that. Or somebody, I would have seen that somewhere by now. And let's not try to invent that. Well, no, I've seen that, blah, blah, blah. No, you haven't. AI wrote that. Or if you've seen it, it's been fairly recently. That's ChatGPT or Grok or whatever the fuck wrote that. Oh man, I'm fucking wore out. All of this emotional, it's very emotional, man, all of this stuff. It's draining. And I did not sleep that well last night. I knew it was going to be tough because in some of these more country areas, the Walmart parking lot is the hangout for the local teens and people in their early 20s. There's a lot of things going on, which is funny because when I sleep in my car in the city, it's not like, loud ass cars go by all night or somebody on a loud ass motorcycle. But, it's sort of a different thing. It's a little more predictable. It wasn't the noise they were making. It's more of the unpredictable nature of it and not being used to it overall. But that's okay. I might do this laundry and just take the rest of the fucking day off. I'm over it already, man. This is brutal. Brutal. Although, if I do manage to visit the restroom, sometimes this might just be detox, a bunch of detox symptoms. I ate about half a pound of prunes yesterday, so I think that's what's going on. Supposedly this time of the morning is it's getting into peak large intestine activation. Supposedly, it's getting to be that time anyway. How does that even fit into modern life? Just being able to properly operate one's own body and try to fit that into the constraints of the workday. Whereby, in order for rich people to get richer, poor people have to become the working class has to become more productive, while also becoming more impoverished simultaneously. That has to happen. Otherwise, rich people can't become richer every new moment. But let's continue to lie to ourselves and say, well, it's a meritocracy, and they've worked hard to earn that $100,000+ Denali, fucking GMC Denali SUV, and that gigantic $100,000 fifth wheel trailer, while they sit there at the pump and just roll the window down and with a wave of their hand think that the peasant Benton, from their perspective, is going to get the fuck out of their way. And I just look at them eating my beans and my fish. And then finally they go, "Hey man, I want to get in there." And I said, "I don't give a fuck." But not with any malice. Just that's true. I don't give a fuck. Why would I care if and he's probably not even actually rich, but you know what I mean. At least somebody who served evil enough to temporarily, live in relative affluence, as my father did. Of course, I told my father that too. I said, no, you weren't. You were temporarily affluent. He knows. He agreed. So here's I'm sort of burying the lead. So here was the spiritual attack he does this thing where when he wants to get off the phone, he just starts acting like he can't hear what I'm saying. And then he wraps up the call in a way that doesn't seem rude to whoever's in the room listening. Because remember, he's in his apartment and his, what I'm assuming is the woman that he met a couple of years back. I don't know. My dad's very private and secretive in that way. Well, that's okay. I'm kind of that way too. So, who cares? And I respect people's privacy. If they don't want me to know anything about whoever they're in a relationship with, I'm actually not curious anyway. But whoever that may be, so he's wrapping up the call, and it's just terrible. I can hear his voice, awful. And so then I guess to try to manage expectations, he sent me a couple of emails that I didn't read until I guess a few hours later, and tried to say somebody came to the door. And here's the part that would have driven me into a rage. That first is like, what are you talking about? My father is not, people aren't coming to see him unless it's somebody like, a relative that he's expecting, in which case probably he would have mentioned it, but who knows? I don't know. Maybe he really did have to go answer the door and was receiving visitors. I don't fucking know. I mean, this thing could actually be far more evil than I realized now that I think about if he's telling the truth and if he actually had to go answer the door. This could involve my sister. Because now apparently my father's moved to the same part of Arkansas where, much of my family has moved, which is bizarre because we're not culturally from that area. None of us. My sister married a guy who grew up in that area. I got the long COVID because I was visiting the fucking Delta. We got blasted with the Delta, the bioweapon. Don't miss me with all that. COVID ain't real. There's no such thing as long COVID. I don't care what you call it. I was attacked with a motherfucking bioweapon that took about 1.5 years to wear off. Y'all can call it whatever the fuck you want to call it. If you want to tell me that ain't Delta and that ain't COVID, so be it. I got attacked by a goddamn bioweapon. It damn near killed my mother. She was in the ICU for 2 weeks. Every single person I know in that part of the state that was there at the time got fucking sick as a dog, including my nephew who was about 20 at the time and healthy as a motherfucking horse. My sister's husband, who's a drinker but otherwise healthy, he ended up on the antibodies. Right? It's complete fucking shenanigans. Total shenanigans. So I don't want to fucking hear it. Everybody's got their own view. That's fine. I'm not open to being told about a thing that I probably, at least personally, including me, right? Maybe you had other worse things happen in your family. I don't know. I haven't heard of anybody that got as was who also, had members of their own family got up too. Although here's shocking, a single person who died that I personally know who died of COVID or something that was called COVID or died from the jab. I don't know one person who died from either one. I know one person who almost died, and I've met at least one person who claims that the jab almost killed him. In fact, it was a guy who ended up on the vent in the hospital. Although women of my mom's age, if they go on a vent, they almost never come off of it. So that's what I mean by my mom just flat refused to go on the vent. even though both my sisters tried to see if it was possible to convince her to go on the vent. And then when that failed, my middle sister was exploring legal means to possibly have my mother declared incompetent. But then the lawyer quickly said, well, that's basically impossible in this country. It's very, very difficult to go to a court and have that done. So, not going to happen. So that could have been who showed up at the door. And then my father emailing me, and he said, here's the part that in the past would have driven me into a rage. He said, I guess I need to move to, something about he needs to move to a less busy apartment complex. Now, what I wanted to, after I thought it over, I wanted to say, well, I thought it was probably the Jehovah's Witnesses or something, which is a little dig at him. Hell, he probably does have the Jehovah's Witnesses calling on him on Sunday after Kingdom Hall's over, but could have been them. And he would want to talk to him, certainly. So either way, but see, the old Benton would have flown into a rage and typed, a TDLR, wall of text.txt, wall of text, all that shit by you.txt, I mean, all that shit by me. That's the autistic side, but the accepting side, so that my large intestine continues to heal, is just like, wow, this is really happening. This is really a thing. I guess I can believe it. Seems to be happening. And then again, waking dreams surrealistic unreality. See, which I think is the first time I've mentioned that in the screen. It's the recognition to remind myself to not take all of this too seriously, because it can't ever be completely serious, while also doing whatever needs to be done to facilitate the deliverance, healing, and restoration in the name and the power of the Lord Christ Jesus. And again, if other people have a different naming and different labels and different concepts, great. Why would I care? That's your problem or your blessing or your advantage. I don't give a fuck. I know what I know. That's good enough for me. More than good enough, actually. Yeah, now I'm cramping up a little down there. This is going to be a wild ride, potentially. Actually, it won't be. Because if anybody has a wild ride in the bathroom, it's the gut biome. It's all that bullshit. I don't ever eat the bullshit anymore, and I never have the wild ride in the restroom, ever, for the last 4 years. I've gotten a couple of times what I call a liver dump, which is where the liver just basically dumps all the bile into the small intestine, and that's, comes out in liquid form. But that's actually probably better overall for the body. That's the liver doing a thing on purpose. It's not, the bubble guts or whatever. It's not repeated trips. It's one and done, right? It's not the trots. That's all based on improper eating and a gut biome that can never be proper, right? Yeah, when I got drunk a while back, it fucked mine up. It fucked my gut biome up. And that was like 5 days to get back to normal. I mean, what's normal for me anyway. Oh, it was horrible. But we're there now. Anyway, I think I'm going to get off of here because we got 30 miles, and then I feel I need to do some stretching because the way I'm sitting, talking. Let me yerk the stream. Let's see if I can pay enough attention to my physicality to maybe sit up a little straighter, and while stretching and then continuing to talk. Can I do both is the question. Perhaps. Oh, man. I've been leaning into this, whatever's going on energetically. And man, this is Again, I'm one of those pain don't hurt people, and I'm at about a 7 out of 10 right now. This is, but it's not anything to, oh no, it's completely fine. This is right there in my wheelhouse. Part of me likes it. Although this coinciding with returning to a job potentially, I mean, maybe that's just the way things go. I don't know. Hard to say. I guess they're not going to pass me. Could be adaptive cruise control. Bane of civilization. And then the adaptive cruise control drives their car for them. And they just cruise along behind Benton, and then eventually. So here's what these people just did. They cruised along in a wide open passing lane because the adaptive cruise control maintained a safe distance. And then when we got to the end of the passing zone, right before it went to double yellows, I guess they then experienced a FOMO. Oh my God, we're about to lose the passing zone. And they passed me, where it actually was debatably somewhat dangerous versus it was completely safe right before that. And again, these are the people that I'm expected to believe are going to, air quotes, wake up and fix dystopia. It's not possible because they can't fix themselves. They can't even become aware of the condition they're in to even know that there's something that needs to be addressed. Because remember, advertising and marketing has them convinced that they are basically godlike within themselves in order to market to them. But man, this is crazy. I will say this, if people want to donate at this point, if there's anybody that can spare some money, I wouldn't mind just checking into a motel later. And this is fucking horrible. Or I may just go to the bathroom in an hour and I may feel fucking fine. I mean, I really don't know. It's not a problem to be solved, but this is awful. But yeah, I'm feeling like it's going to resolve. It's almost time for the next egg drink. Actually, it's overtime for the next egg drink. And then, really one of the major points I'm trying to make is I can't give any advice to the listener, and it wouldn't be appropriate anyway, but certainly YouTube's term of service won't allow it. That's medical advice, so consult your doctor, even though I don't consult doctors. But to sort of lean into the discomfort in a way, because that is the healing. Whatever I'm going through right now is most likely my large intestine is fucking one of the last parts of my organs that has a lot of toxins in it. And bit by bit, piece by piece, when it's able to, it's releasing the toxins, in placing them into the feces. And I mean, that's just what it is. I understand that a lot of the people that listen to this don't like to think about those sorts of things. Yeah, I get it, but like, this is what's happening, most likely. So that's where the symptoms come in. That's what I mean by the healing, the feeling of fatigue, being run down. I know not to identify with that, intestinal, abdominal discomfort. That is the healing. It just ain't fully here yet. That is the healing. Hang on, I gotta help this semi pass. If this is the passing zone, and I guess it is, it will help him get around. Slow down a little bit. And I'm not, again, I'm not above doing some version of e-begging. And I'm all, like I said, I'm pretty sure we're good on money. So that would be a bonus. Yeah, hypothetically, I could just go check into a motel, and many people would. See, to me, that's part of the reason that I took a picture of a bottle of fucking laundry soap. It's because, well, number one, I was shocked that was only $5.43. So we see that the system is already resetting expectations with respect to what things cost. I thought it was going to be like $8 for that. It's only like 32 loads or whatever it is, 24, 32 loads. And I was actually surprised it was only $5.43. And that's just the sort of thing I buy, like, for real. And yeah, if I end up in the truck, I will go stock up on, whatever I feel like I need to stock up on to hit the road. That's what I mean by, and then, stop at Walmart a couple times, and then hopefully be able to get through to the first paycheck. And, I do okay on less food anyway. I don't have to eat a specific amount of calories every day. And some days I choose to eat more calories than other days. But yeah, especially with the headache I'm experiencing, this is absolutely detox symptoms, which is good. This is the healing. But all right, I'm out of here. I've rambled long enough. We're at 2 hours damn near. Bye.